Sure, Carbon. I have your next video topic.
No. The last video I made gave me fucking nightmares. I'm not making another one. Absolutely not. No.
Oh, come on. This one's all about math. You like math.
Does this have anything to do with that Archduke guy?
This was the source for that video, yes.
Okay, fine. This is the last one that I'm making. The very last one. End of discussion.
Don't believe or disbelieve anything we discuss in spirit science. Simply have your own experience.
I usually don't believe something until it can be proven to be true, so I will keep an open mind, but because you use the words God and math together in the title, I'm feeling pretty skeptical.
In Lesson 6, I showed you an intro to sacred geometry, the flower of life. We looked at the Genesis pattern and how it forms the fruit of life, the pattern that all physical matter in existence comes out of.
That's all bullshit and has been debunked time and time again. It's really easy to debunk. Here, I'll show you. Take some random shapes, throw them together, and assign some arbitrary meaning to it. See, it's bullshit. That's a gun, by the way. I like guns. They make loud noises.
We jumped out of the sacred geometric pool for a few lessons, and today we're going to dive right back in.
That sounds like hell, but okay.
I've mentioned quite a few times that within the flower of life are found the music and harmonics of everything in existence. Let's find out how that works, shall we?
And I'm going to explain how it actually works.
First, I want to show you phi and Fibonacci. It's important to understand for what we're going to talk about. I'll show you what you need to know to continue, and if you want to learn more in depth about these sequences, I will provide sources in the comments.
I checked his sources, and all but 3 were New Age websites that provide no evidence for their claims. The general narrative for all of them was, if we draw these lines, it connects things, therefore God, or Martians, or something crazy like that. I've copied and pasted all the sources in the description section of this video, so if you want to see the insanity, then check it out, but keep in mind that I'm not responsible for any brain aneurysms that occur.
Phi, also known as the golden ratio, or golden mean, is a very simple relationship. If you had a rod and were going to put a mark on it, only 2 places would mark the phi ratio, which is here or here. The length of A plus B is equal to the length of C. This ratio is 1.6180339 and continues on forever.
Yeah, that's cool and all, but what's your point?
If you multiply the length of C with phi, it will create the exact same image, only bigger. C and D is equal to E. This ratio could then span on forever, going smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger forever. This ratio is infinite. It has no beginning and no end.
This is awesome. Why don't you make all your videos like this? I suggest maybe make your videos more science-based as opposed to spirit-based, because it would make a lot more sense, and you wouldn't have as many people laughing at your bullshit.
It is also believed that phi is the mathematical root of all other sequences. See, every mathematical sequence in existence needs a minimum of 3 numbers to figure out the sequence. Phi only needs 2. It is the only one. Similar to how the circle and square are the source of all shape, but we'll get to that later on.
I love that. In almost all of your videos, you repeat that phrase. We'll get to that later. Also, you say phi is believed to be the root of all other mathematical sequences. Well, I did a quick Google search, and the only thing else that I found making that claim besides your video was some shady-looking New Age website that was last updated in 2002. Which makes me wonder, was this your source? If it was, then you're a moron. It's like going to a dark alley and buying white powder from someone who tells you that it's sugar, which can't be trusted. In the examples you gave, you didn't explain how they are connected to phi, so I will do your work for you. In the box I see the Fibonacci sequence, which I know is connected to phi in the sense that if you take 2 numbers in the sequence which are next to one another and divide the larger one by the smaller one, you will get a number that is close to 1.618. Now that we know how the sequence relates to phi, let's compare it to another sequence of prime numbers, which, in case you didn't know, a prime number is a number that can only be divided by 1 in itself. If we apply the same rule that connects the Fibonacci sequence to phi, by taking the numbers, I don't know, 97 and 89, we get 1.09, which is nowhere close to phi. So, tell me, SS, how is a sequence of prime numbers connected to phi?
It is believed.
Oh, I see. Your delusion has nothing to do with science. Your name should be Spirit Pseudoscience, because that's the closest we'll ever come to real science. Okay? Fantastic.
The next thing that you need to know is that this ratio is found in all life everywhere.
Oh, is it? Because I was under the impression that reality is as I see it, where it's not in all life everywhere, as seen in these examples. Now I know that it can be found in many places in nature, but that's only because of energy efficiency, or balance, which I will rant about a little later in this video.
Sort of.
Oh, fantastic, you agree with me. Are you going to show examples of how it's not in all life, or are you just going to cherry-pick examples that best fit your narrative? I think my small audience is smart enough to know which one you're going to do.
By sort of, I mean it's really Fibonacci, but we'll look at that in a moment.
Oh shit, I was wrong. You didn't even acknowledge the fact that it's not everywhere in nature. Fuck.
Look at your hand. Not only does each finger have its own ratio moving up each finger, which is phi to the next bone, but it oscillates back and forth from the tallest finger to the thumb. You wonder why the human hand is like that? It's based on phi.
Once again, not all, but quite a few. Now, do you know why that is? It's because of energy efficiency, or the balance between cost and gain, which I believe is called opportunity cost. Now, I know that I've already explained this in my video responding to Archduke, but just in case you didn't see that, I'll explain it again. Okay, imagine a windmill. The cost of each blade is extremely high, so people will want to use the smallest number of blades possible. If we look at the power output of a windmill with 1, 2, 3, and 4 blades, we see something interesting. A 2-bladed windmill will have twice the power output of a 1-bladed windmill, and a 3-bladed windmill will have 3 times the power output of a 1-bladed one. Now, a 4-bladed windmill will have, wait for it, roughly 3 times the power output of a 1-bladed windmill, which explains why we usually see only 3-bladed windmills. Now, the reason why it peaks at 3 blades has to do with a wide range of different factors, including the weight of the blades, the aerodynamics of each blade, the maximum speed that the laws of nature allow it to spin at. All these factors combined, unfortunately, cap its max output at 3 blades. Now, this idea of a balance between forces can be seen all throughout nature, and our universe, from stars and planets, which have distributed a majority of its mass evenly all around because of gravity, which explains they are shaped like spheres, and not cubes, or pieces of paper as some people sadly believe. Another example is in many biological organisms, like the example you gave of the human hand. This balance comes from evolution, where fingers that are too long would require more energy, decreasing the fitness level of the organism, and fingers that are too short would not give the organism the evolutionary advantage over its competition for territory, potential mates, and resources like food, where factors like natural selection gradually wean out the one with the lower fitness level. This is true for all organisms on this planet who are competing for survival, to pass on their genes to the next generation. It's balance. That's the only reason why these numbers are found all over the place.
This relationship is found throughout the body in various ways, moving up the arms and legs, in your face, throughout the entire body.
Which is, once again, because of balance.
This is a Greek statue that accurately represents this. The Greeks were very precise when they made their art, because they understood phi, Fibonacci, and the importance of these sequences.
No, they were advanced in mathematics, and they liked balance, which can be seen in all their buildings and artwork.
When the Romans took over Greece, you could see the perfection in statues just completely disappear.
Citation needed. And, were you there? Oh god, I sound like the creationist Ken Ham. Were you there? How do you know? Were you there? Fuck.
I'm not saying the Romans were bad artists. They just didn't measure everything to the same caliber that the Greeks did.
How do you know? Maybe there are some things that got destroyed that were to these proportions. Citation!
Here is the phi ratio in butterflies. You can see this ratio everywhere, from the wing size to the body to the antennas. They're all phi ratios. Here's dragonflies. It's the same story. Phi runs along the entire body, and the relation to the body and the wings. Here it is in frogs. Phi is found throughout the body in relation to the head, to the arms, to the fingers, and so on.
Yes, yes, yes. These are all because of balance and energy efficiency. What's your point?
Well, what about fish? You'd think they wouldn't be found in fish. Well, here's 3 kinds of fish. Once again, the ratios are consistent. It doesn't just apply to these creatures though. Regardless of what mammal, insect, avian, plant, or living creature of any kind, you will find this ratio one way or another.
Get to your fucking point, you moron. I'm sorry, that was completely unprofessional. I don't know what came over me.
There's a reason for this, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let me show you the importance we used to place on this golden ratio. In ancient times, we built many structures based on phi because we understood divine proportion. This is the pagoda of Yakushiji Temple in Japan. It's built with these same mathematics, from the doorway to the ball on top of the temple. It is a structural embodiment of the proportions that all life holds.
Yes, many forms of art and architecture have these proportions. And you know why this is? Well, it has to do with how we've evolved as a species. You see, like I mentioned earlier, organisms who have bodies with these proportions are more evolutionary fit, and are more likely to pass on their genes to the next generation. So it makes sense for us to be attracted to members of our own species who have these proportions. The same goes for food. We are attracted to foods that have these proportions, because foods with these proportions are more likely to have a higher nutritional value, thus making them better for us. Now, as a byproduct of this, we are attracted to these proportions because, from an evolutionary standpoint, they gave us an advantage over other members of our species. So if you're an artist, then I encourage you to create your art using these proportions, because it will be more aesthetically pleasing to your potential buyer. Stupid humans. Once again, falling victim to their own biology. Now, if you want to learn more about how aesthetics can be explained by Darwinian evolution, then I will include a link to a TED Talk in the description section of this video, if you want to learn more.
The Parthenon in Greece also has the exact same mathematical structure, but even more. I recommend watching Nova's Secrets of the Parthenon if you wish to learn more about this, because the stuff that they find is really cool. The Great Pyramid in Giza also has these proportions. They're incredibly precise, perfect in every way.
I believe these proportions can be taken from any right triangle, but I might be wrong on that, so if I'm wrong, then please correct me. Otherwise, it could just be a coincidence.
You'd think that by building these structures using the logical and mathematical proportions so carefully that they would hinder the creativity behind these buildings, but they really don't. In fact, the left brain understanding all of this can even enhance creativity if used correctly.
What the hell are you talking about? Word salad. And why did you have, like, the male and female symbolizing the right and left brain? That makes no sense.
It makes me wonder about all of the world-famous buildings of the modern world. Could phi be a large factor in what makes them stand out?
Probably, and I've already explained why. All it has to do with an evolutionary byproduct of us being attracted to these proportions, because organisms from the same species as us will be more evolutionary fit if they have these proportions. So over time, we have become attracted to these proportions. TED Talk in the description. Watch it.
Let's move on to our next sequence, which is called Fibonacci. Now, the Fibonacci sequence is life's way of creating the golden mean. Allow me to explain. This sequence is continually made from adding the previous number to the current. 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 1 is 3, 3 and 2 is 5, 5 and 3 is 8. You can see how it continues. Now, what most people don't know about Fibonacci is that it actually continually strives closer and closer to the phi ratio. By dividing the current number into the last, you can see this happening. 1 into 1 is 1. Well, that's not close at all. 2 into 1 is 2. This time it's over phi, but closer. 3 into 2 is 1.5, which is under, but closer still. 5 into 3 is 1.666. This time it's over, but even closer. Continuing with that, it's 1.6, and then 1.625, 1.615384, 1.619048, and so on. It continually oscillates over and under the phi ratio, never quite making it there, but continuing on closer and closer every time, until eventually you can't even tell the difference. Because phi is an infinite number, this sequence will go on forever.
Yeah, that's correct. Like I said at the beginning of this video, show things like this, and only this. And I'll watch, and I won't criticize, because it's factual and interesting. Carry on.
Let's look at some spirals in nature, another way that phi and Fibonacci can manifest. This is a nautilus shell. Many people will say it's phi, but it's really Fibonacci. See how when it's in its earliest form, it's crude, not smooth or anything? One look and you can tell that's not phi. But as it goes out farther and farther, it gets closer and closer to phi. It becomes a nearly perfect phi spiral by the time it's all the way out here. This also happens with sunflowers, pine cones, and many plants in nature. In many cases, such as the pine cones and sunflowers, it flows in a double spiral or more, much like the spiraling arms of a galaxy. From the microcosm to the macrocosm, spirals are always present.
Yep. And that's once again because of balance. But I have a strong feeling that that's not what your conclusion is going to be.
So phi is basically source, or spirit, or God, in a mathematical way of thinking.
What? How the hell do you draw that conclusion? So, phi is God? Fuck this bullshit.
The math of God. Don't forget that this sequence is an intimate part of nature itself. I'm going to call it source. It is the source of all mathematical sequences, and all life in existence grows based on phi.
That's fucking stupid. I've already explained why this is, and it's not because of a god.
However, phi has no beginning and no end. Life doesn't know how to deal with that. It's like source says, go and replicate this, and life says, we don't know how.
What the fuck? More baseless conclusions based off of your misunderstanding of how these things work, and why they are the way they are. Bullshit.
Because life doesn't know how to create from something that has no beginning. So it creates the Fibonacci sequence instead, which has a beginning, but starts out crude, very basic, and then continually goes closer and closer to source, becoming more divine every step. It does take steps too, which actually has quite a bit to do with evolution.
Oh god. Based off everything you said so far, you clearly lack the credentials required to teach anything about evolution. And the Fibonacci sequence is like that because of phi, which, like I said earlier, is balance or equilibrium. You know, if I made a pendulum, it would slowly lose all of its potential energy because gravity's pulling it down and the string is pushing it up, creating a balance between forces.
Let's move on for now though.
Oh, thank God.
The only other sequence you need to know for this is binary sequences. This is a sequence like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. We're just doubling the last number instead of adding it to the previous one. We're all very familiar with this. Binary sequences are found in life as well. For example, mitotic cell divisions are binary. We go from being a single cell being to having over 100 trillion cells in only 46 divisions.
Okay, what's your point?
Binary sequences are also how computers work, by turning on and off chips. Computing at its core, anyways, is binary. Okay, let's move on to something different for now, but what we just looked at will reveal itself in time. This is how a polar graph usually looks, with 36 radial lines in 10-degree increments, representing the 360 degrees.
Oh god, this is gonna be some of that sacred geometry shit that I've heard of, isn't it?
Then, concentric circles are drawn, each with the same distance away as the last, creating 8 equal demarcations as the one before, counting the inside circle as 1. Think about what this represents too. It's a two-dimensional drawing of a three-dimensional sphere, one of the sacred forms, by projecting it onto a flat surface. This is also called a shadow form, and casting shadows is a sacred way to obtain information.
Yep, that's what it is.
Also, a polar graph has both straight, male lines, and circular, female lines, both male and female energies interacting at once.
Male? Female? So they're capable of producing baby lines? I get that inanimate objects sometimes are anthropomorphized, like male and female header pins, which are used for prototyping electronic circuits. But that doesn't mean you get to start labeling things as male or female, like a maniac. And why the hell are you bringing your misunderstanding of energy into this?
If you plot a golden mean spiral at 0 degrees on the polar graph, it will loop all the way around before hitting 0 again, exactly at the 8th circle.
That isn't a Fibonacci spiral. Just take a look.
You'll find that this golden mean line crosses 5 specific places as it goes out. These places are where the female circular lines meet the male lines.
Not a Fibonacci spiral! Look.
It crosses at 120 degrees, 190 degrees, 240 degrees, 280 degrees, and then it jumps to 360, or back at 0, depending on how you look at it. What's interesting about this is that it creates both a binary and Fibonacci sequence.
No, it doesn't, and I've already shown why.
Looking at the radial increments from the center, it crosses at 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. Well, that's Fibonacci, but it also crosses at 2, 4, and 8. Well, that's a binary sequence.
Fucking idiot.
We're going to look at the binary sequence in particular, though, because what you find is very cool. If you draw lines from the outermost circles on the lines where the binary sequence was formed, you get this image. It is an equilateral triangle.
You know what? So I'm not just sitting here going, nope, idiot, moron. I'm going to pretend that your drawing was Fibonacci.
If you continue the spiral outward, it would continue to hit these exact same places and continue to form larger equilateral triangles.
Okay, so it will continue to hit these lines you drew. Great! That is meaningless. It's the sacred geometry shit all over again. You draw lines and connect them and assign some arbitrary meaning to it. It's meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. Fucking moron.
Let's divert yet again to look at something very interesting. There was a man named Keith Critchlow who discovered something very important to understanding the geometry of music.
I looked him up and couldn't find anything about geometry or music. So, citation needed?
First, he drew a straight line through an equilateral triangle, and then he measured from the middle of the center line and drew a straight line up to the top edge and back down to the bottom corner. Then he did the same, but passed through the center line of the top and back down again. He did this yet again on the other side. You can keep doing this on either side as well. By drawing this funny little form, he discovered something of great importance. He writes, continuing in this way, each successive proportion will be the harmonic mean between the previous proportion and the total length, and all of these proportions will be musically significant. 1/2 being the octave, 2/3 being the fifth, 4/5 being the major third, 8/9 being the major tone or step, and 16/17 being the half tone or step.
Okay, that's great and all, but what is your point?
In other words, he discovered the geometries of music, or at least one aspect of them. Then he tried measuring it in a different way, starting at a different point of the center line. At 3/4, he found the measurements were 1/7, 1/4, 2/5, 4/7, 8/11, and 16/19. All of these numbers are musically significant.
Once again, what's your point?
This is very interesting. It means that the harmonics of music are somehow related to the proportions of the central line moving through a tetrahedron.
It means our perception of sound does, and that waves are balanced, which, if you recall, are the reason why they're tied in with Fibonacci and all this. The way we hear sound matches that. What's your point? If I have to ask this question again, I'm going to tear my hair out.
Back to the polar graph, you can see that this drawing has a much greater value all of a sudden.
What? How the fuck does it have greater value? Sure, it has some numbers that fit well together. Welcome to the universe. Numbers and things go well together. It's the only way that they can exist. And that's why they exist that way, because if they didn't go well together, they wouldn't exist.
Not only that, but it becomes even easier to make your measurements thanks to the polar graph itself. You can just draw a straight line through the drawing on the graph, and it will give you the center line. This information has been taken light years beyond what I just showed you though. A research team found that you can draw these lines not only from the center, but from any nodal points inside the upper half of the triangle, and you'll come up with all known harmonics in existence.
What research team? Look, all this sacred geometry is bullshit. You put some shapes together and draw some arbitrary meaning from it. Remember this? Yeah. Bullshit.
Basically, this means that anywhere the straight line and curved lines on the polar graph cross from 0 to 120 degrees and start making the pattern, you will come up with all known harmonic systems. Not only the Western keyboard, but the Eastern, and even many unknown systems that have never been used.
Ooh, magic lines that I'm basing off of a spiral that I fucked up. But it's okay, my audience is a bunch of morons who will believe anything they're told. Listen and believe, right guys? Yeah. Listen and believe.
As I'm not a musician, there's not much more I can show you related to this, but I would love to see what a musician could really do with this knowledge. How far could you take this?
Watch and learn, bitches.
Alright, I'm running low on time here, so I'll wrap up with this unraveling. Remember when we talked about spirals in nature? They often travel in twos. Usually this is male and female.
No. They sometimes travel in twos. And once again, you can't just call something male and female unless they are either actually male or female, or have the characteristics of the two sexes.
So on this polar graph, if you're going to copy nature, you don't just plot one spiral, you have to plot two.
Why do you need to plot two? Oh wait, I know, it's sacred geometry logic.
When you do that, it gives you this image, which is a star tetrahedron inside of a sphere. We mentioned this in Lesson 7, and this image is more commonly known as the Star of David.
Space Jews.
Do you remember the face on Mars?
Yes. Do you remember that front of that car that looked like a face? Or that cloud that looked like a face? Or this alarm clock? Or this washing machine? Do you know why they look like a face to us? It's because our brains have evolved to seek out patterns to help us better predict future events in our environment. And just like our attraction to things that are proportionate has resulted in us creating fantastic works of art and architecture, our primitive instincts make us see faces in mountains. You know, alright, maybe there would be something to this face on Mars if it looked something like this. But instead, it looks something like this. Yeah. Bullshit.
NASA obviously tells us that it's just a random formation on the surface of the planet.
Which it is. Just like this formation on Earth.
But right next to the face, there are also a few pyramids and other anthropomorphic structures. I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would I bring that up all of a sudden?
Because you are somehow going to tie your faulty spiral to the Martians and how they are the Illuminati reptilian elites?
Well, Richard Hoagland and his colleagues have spent a long time researching and deciphering a message on the surface of the red planet. Want to know what that message was? It was a star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere.
Space Jews did it.
Holy balls, right? There's a link in the comments to a page with all of this information if you want to learn more. It's pretty crazy.
All bullshit. I checked it. Just more new age woo-woo that is backed by nothing but lines drawn on a picture.
And very eye-opening now that we have this information about what this really means.
I don't think it's very eye-opening. I think it's bullshit. And it means you can draw some lines on a piece of paper. Yay! You'll be using the big boy scissors by next week.
Inside the star tetrahedron, another one fits perfectly.
Inside the square, another one fits perfectly.
We can continue to put more and more star tetrahedrons inside or outside of the other star tetrahedrons, the same way the golden mean spiral can wrap around the polar graph infinitely big or infinitely small.
We can bolt more squares inside of the square. Therefore, space Eskimos did it. It's meaningless.
You'll notice that this smaller tetrahedron also happens to fit perfectly around this sphere. Well, check this out. If you put this same size sphere centered on the point of every single star tetrahedral point, guess what suddenly reveals itself?
Something very stupid.
The fruit of life.
See? Told you. Stupid.
It's back.
Fuck!
According to the Egyptians, as well as the Ascended Masters, this is one of the holiest, most sacred forms in existence.
No. My square within a square within a square is. Now go to my website and buy more crystal slaves.
Of course, we already learned one of its informational systems in Lesson 6, and what you just saw was the second, only in reverse order.
Okay. Cool.
What this means is that all of the information of music, harmonics, sound, and spirals come out of this image. Not only that, but light and the dimensional levels work in the same way as harmonics.
No. You drew that image from all that, and gave it some meaning.
Which we've already discussed in Lesson 2, 7, and 9. Meaning that the geometric information about light and dimensions are also related to this star tetrahedron pattern. So just briefly looking at this image that we looked at in Lesson 7, this is the fourth unraveling of the flower of life. It is an infinite spectrum of never-ending fruits of life within more fruits of life.
It's a square within a square within a square within a square within a square. Yay. Space Eskimos. And that's my belief, by the way. More information can be found on my website. Go buy crystals there. They're fantastic.
This is the unraveling of dimensions, so it makes a little more sense now, but I won't have time to show you anything more today. So what you just saw was the second unraveling from the third rotational pattern of Genesis, the geometry at the heart of creation.
Cool story, bro. Cool story. Ah. Jordan. So that's your name. Well, that would have been helpful to know while doing these. Oh well. Thank God that's done with. I'm so glad I no longer need to do another...
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this one, because PC has graciously agreed to debunk more spirit science bullshit in the future. Wait, what are you doing with a knife? Oh God! PC, put the knife down. Let's talk about this. Oh shit,